Is it still possible to do the Ha Giang Loop independently without an international driving license, and how much does it cost? Before I jump in, hey, I'm Kat and I've been traveling for more than 2 years now in my self-built camper van, and I'm currently on my first ever big backpacking trip in Southeast Asia. So right now I'm in a bunk bed in Cambodia in a dorm, and I've suddenly lost all the daylight. So this is my makeshift setup using bed lamps. That's just how it is. Yeah, I feel like everything is so chaotic when I try and create content while traveling, because even just now, like, I tried to set this up about 2 hours ago, and then I realized that my SD card wasn't going to have enough space and my battery wasn't charged, and then I didn't want to take the stuff off my SD card, and then I was too afraid to format it because I wasn't sure if it was backed up. And that is the reality of trying to create videos while traveling and being just a very unprepared and unorganized person. But let's jump into the video. Is it still possible? Technically, yes, it is. And this is what we did. I'm going to start with just a bit of a caveat though, because I am not experienced on a motorbike or a scooter. I'd never ridden a scooter before coming to Southeast Asia. First time I rode a scooter was in Thailand, in Chiang Mai, and we did end up doing the Mae Hong Song. And I think had I not done that, I definitely would not have had the confidence to do the Ha Giang Loop. So I definitely think you need to have at least some scooter experience to do it, if not a lot of scooter experience to do it, and just generally a lot of confidence in yourself and your abilities. So it is kind of tough and kind of scary at times. So if you don't have the confidence to do it, then I wouldn't recommend doing it by yourself. Okay, so I'm going to try and break down the information, starting with why we decided to do it ourselves without international driving licenses. And honestly, the reason for that is just purely that we didn't know we were going to be riding scooters before we came out, so we didn't sort out the international driving licenses. But the reason we didn't do a tour or an easy rider wasn't like about the money or anything. I actually think it probably ended up costing us the same in the end, but it was more so just that we didn't want to do it as a group. I think collectively we just felt like doing it as a group would feel like organized fun, and it would take away from the experience for us, and we just wanted to be able to take our own time, stop when we want, eat where we want, stay where we want, take as many photos as we want, and just kind of, yeah, have the achievement for ourselves. So that's the main reason we didn't want to do a tour. And honestly, I was kind of afraid that if we did do a tour, we'd end up with like a big party group, and that would ruin it for me, honestly. So how did we do it? So we basically got a night bus to Ha Giang and picked a hostel to stay in that was also a motorbike rental, which honestly is pretty much every hostel in Ha Giang. And in the morning we asked them if we could rent bikes, and they actually said no. Fair enough to them, they said no. Without an international driving license, they would not rent us bikes. So that was interesting because I wasn't actually expecting that. I thought it would be really easy to just rent a bike because it was in Thailand. But they did give us some recommendations on where we might be able to rent a bike, and pretty much the first place we went to after that said, okay, I don't know if I should give their name because I don't want them to get into trouble, not that I think they would, but I guess if you watch the video carefully or drop me a message, I'll tell you. But anyway, we went to a rental who said, okay, you can take them as long as you're willing to pay any fines or bribes if you get stopped by the police. So the rental did actually drive us past the first 2 police checkpoints out of town, because they told us that sometimes if you get stopped, which you probably will on your way out of town, they might ask for a really high bribe, up to like 5 million dong, and if you refuse to pay it or try and barter it, they'll just send you straight back. So they drove us past those checkpoints and then sent us on our merry way, and we were having the best time. We were free, we were on the road, and then about an hour or 2 into the journey on the first day, we got stopped by the police. Oh, Bert's back. Okay, I'm back, sorry. My brother just got back from getting a tattoo, and technically I'm sat in his bed, so now I've kicked him out and he's sat above me. Okay, so where was I? the police, getting stopped by the police. So what happened? So we literally rounded the corner and they were just stood there in the road, bam, like on the blind corner, ready to pull us over. Like we couldn't even have just driven past, even if we were trying to be sneaky. So we pulled over, we took our keys out of our bikes pretty quickly and put them in our pockets because we were like prepared to do that. But then we kind of just well, we just did what we were told. So we were sat on the side, and the police officer came up, and none of them spoke any English, but he just got out on Google Translate, and he said, "Can I see your international driving license and your passport?" And we said we didn't have them, and he was like, "Oh, okay." Then went over to like his colleagues, came back and said he had a picture of the international driving license too. So they're definitely a lot more strict on it than what I read in other blogs. So he said, technically you have to have this, and if you don't have this, we are going to confiscate your bikes. That's the law. And he just said, do you understand that? Wait here a minute. And we were like, okay, I understand that. And then he went away, came back, and he said, okay, if you give me 2 million dong per bike, we can make a deal and you can carry on. And we didn't actually have 4 million dong on us, and we didn't really want to pay that either. We tried to read up about what people had paid previously, and it kind of spanned from all number of things. So we just had in mind to try and barter as low as we could. But unfortunately, there was a couple ahead of us who were in like a really heated argument with them. I think they did have an international driving license, but it wasn't the right one for Vietnam or something. And I think they'd really already pissed off at least one of the police officers. The guy that was talking to us was actually really nice. And at one point, I did actually think that we were going to get away with it, because he did say, he Google Translate and said, have you guys eaten? Are you hungry? And we were like, no, we haven't eaten. And he did at one point sort of offer to go and get some food first and then go to an ATM, and I was kind of hoping that maybe they would just let us buy them dinner, but it didn't happen. They wouldn't take any less than 2 million. They wouldn't barter anything down at all. They just said, you're going to have to come with us to an ATM because this couple are coming anyway, and if you don't want us to take our bikes, you have to pay the money. So we were just like, right, okay then, well that's what we're going to have to pay. So we followed them all the way to the nearest town, got the money out, gave them the money. Oh, I also forgot to say we did a silly thing, because when they asked for our driving license and passport, we'd read that sometimes they just want to take a picture and add it to a database. So I didn't really think too much of handing them over, but then obviously they just held them as ransom and wouldn't give them back until we paid them the money. So don't do that. But yeah, we got the money out. We gave them the money, they gave us our stuff back, and then they gave us like a ticket, which was basically just a drink driving leaflet with our registration and the date on them, I think. And they said that if we showed this to police, if we get stopped again, we wouldn't get fined again. So there's that, I guess. So that's what happened, and we head out on our merry way. And I am glad that it did happen on the first day. So that was over and done with, and I'm glad it happened that day too, because that was probably one of the days with the least amount of driving that we had planned. We did also meet a lot of other people doing it independently, and we asked them if they'd got stopped by the police and how much they got fined, and every single person we met had been stopped and had been fined. And it did range between 1 and 2 million. I think one couple we met said they did manage to barter them down to 1 million, but everybody else we met said they also had to pay 2 million per bike. So that seems to be the thing at the moment. But honestly, I think it very much depends on the policeman that you get on that day and how they're feeling. And they also seem to change places every day as well, because where we got stopped, they then, after they took us to the ATM, they just stationed themselves in the town there for like another hour or two before they finished the day. So I honestly think it is very unpredictable on where and when you might get stopped. However, that was actually the only time we got stopped. So again, we talked to other people, and some people told us they'd been stopped like 4 or 5 times by the police, and their ticket did work, they didn't get fined again. That was the only time we actually got pulled over. And so in a way, I think we were quite unlucky, because I think if we had been like 15 minutes longer, they'd have gone off with that couple to get the cash and we wouldn't have seen the police at all. But who knows, maybe we'd have got stopped somewhere else, because we did see police on the very last day, but we just didn't get stopped. And I think that's because they were mainly flagging down people coming the other direction, hoping to catch people on their first day rather than their last day, which I guess makes sense. So yeah, I don't know, make of that information what you will. Honestly, I think there is a lot of factors, so I'm just giving you our experience, and hopefully you can take from it something that will help you if you are planning your own trip. But do I think it was worth it, even with the fines? 100%. 100% worth it. To have our own time, have our own space, do what we wanted, plan what we wanted. I took some incredible photos and was just to be able to enjoy it and take my time and not feel like there was people waiting on me, or, you know, feel like I was waiting on other people. Oh yeah, also my favorite sections, just if you do go on a tour, my favorite sections were actually the detour to the flagpole near the border of China and the section of driving near the skywalk, which I can't remember, but if you Google the skywalk, just if you go on a tour, maybe ask them that you'll definitely be going to those two places, because they were the best scenery for me. And I think there are a lot of tours that do less days and you wouldn't get to do that detour to the flagpole. So I would highly recommend doing that. But again, slight tangent. Do I think the tours aren't worth it? And no, not necessarily, actually. It just wasn't for us. So, like I said, we met a lot of people and a lot of people at hostels afterwards in Vietnam, and they absolutely loved the tours and couldn't rave about doing the tours enough. And I think especially if you're a solo traveler, I think it would be a super, super fun thing to do. I think if you get a group that you vibe with, you'll have the best time ever. I was just a bit worried that it would be a party group, because a lot of the tour groups that I saw were like very young teenagers and like on their gap year, that I imagine just want to party every night and drink a lot of happy water, and that's not for me at the moment. It would have been a lot of fun, but that's just not what I wanted out of the trip. Okay, so are the tours safer and can you still get fined? So actually, I personally feel safer being in control of the bike and driving the bike myself, but obviously the easy riders are like very experienced locals. They do the route all the time, so they know the roads, and the roads are in places very sketchy and pretty dangerous, and it was pretty scary driving them. So I'm gonna say, if you're not really an experienced scooter motorcycle rider, you will probably feel a lot safer on the back of somebody else. But you can ride your own bike and be part of a tour as well. That is another option. But obviously, you're not going to be insured if you do that by your insurance. I'm not even fully sure that you'll be insured by your travel insurance to be on the back of a bike. You might have to check, because I have a feeling that might even be part of some kind of like reckless sport section. I feel like travel insurance always tries to do you over, so I'll probably check either way. But it also doesn't necessarily mean you avoid the fines altogether too, because the way that the tours work generally is that they'll have a couple of extra easy riders on their own bike, and they'll ride ahead to see if there's a police checkpoint, and if there is a police checkpoint, they'll circle back or maybe like radio back or something, and then they will take people on their own bike on the back of their bikes past the checkpoint. So it's kind of like a whole routine system, but I don't think it always goes to plan, and I think that people have been stopped. When we were there, it seemed like the police were letting tours just go through, but I think the smaller tours, when it's a bit harder to tell, especially if people wearing like ponchos and stuff, I'm sure we met a girl the other day who said they were stopped at every single checkpoint, even as part of a tour. And if, like, by some chance you do get stopped and there are people riding a bike, you're riding your bike, then you can get fined. But I think because you have people there who can speak Vietnamese to butter it down, you'll pay a lot less. So I think somebody said that the fines are more like 250,000 rather than like 2 million. So obviously there's a huge difference, but there is still a chance that you could get fined if you don't have your international driving license even if you're riding as part of a tour. And also, um, okay, yeah, so this does follow on. So following on from like if you would wanted to ride the scooter by yourself, but you wanted to do it as part of a tour, and tying into can it be dangerous and can you be fined? A girl told us a story the other day that someone on her tour who was riding her own scooter slid out into a car, and like no one was hurt, it wasn't bad, but the car was a bit damaged, and she apparently was forced to pay the equivalent of £400 on the spot. So whew, that would have 100% ruined my trip, but obviously it's very good that no one was hurt because the roads are pretty dangerous. And going on to that, just to tell you a bit more about what it's like, the roads are pretty sketchy. I think they are trying to redo a lot of them, which is why it felt a bit extra sketchy at the time. So maybe in a year or two, the roads will be a lot better. But there was definitely sections where there wasn't any road at all, and giant holes and really gravelly sections. And we were extremely lucky with the weather. We had beautiful weather in December. Like, it was dry, it was clear. We had the views and fiery sunsets every day, but it was bloody cold. And so it was very dusty, and there was a lot of roadworks going on. So we were like dodging digger arms, swinging into the road. So it was pretty crazy and pretty scary. So yeah, that's just something to bear in mind if you're still thinking about doing it by yourself. Okay, next point. Oh yeah, I actually have kind of forgot this. The whole reason of this was going to the cost of everything. So accommodation, then what did we do? We pretty much just day by day booked on booking.com or Agoda, just in the next town or our next stop, just for a homestay. And with there being three of us, we pretty much paid an average of like £3 each, and a lot of the places had like really beautiful views out of the balconies, and they were comfy enough. I mean, some beds are definitely more comfortable than others. I think we had our fair share of like stereotypical hard Vietnamese beds on this trip when we really could have done with some comfy beds. But the places were nice enough, and they were really, really cheap. And food as well was pretty cheap. I would not say as cheap as Thailand, but food was pretty cheap. Cheaper in the mountains than I think it was down south. And I would say on average, we probably spent around £10 each a day on 3 meals and like coffees and water and like snacks and things en route. Because one of the best things about doing the scooter routes like in Southeast Asia is all of the coffee shacks and restaurants en route, because they often have like incredible views, and you can just have an amazing iced coffee with this beautiful view in this little shack like looking out over the mountains, and it's amazing. Like that for sure was one of the biggest highlights for me. So yeah, cost. And I don't think, did I even go into I'll break it all down at the end. So yeah, meals. Okay, are there any other little tidbits I can share with you just to sum up our experience? The weather, I kind of touched on the weather by saying that we had really nice weather, but it is like right in the mountains. So you do, I would say, want to really check the weather, and if you can, try and go where there's a decent weather window, because even a little bit of bad weather in the mountains might mean that the clouds are super low and you don't get any view at all, which would just suck. So honestly, for me, I actually don't think it would be worth it if you're going to have terrible weather the whole time. So just bear that in mind. I don't know, I'm afraid, if there's any weather apps that are more accurate for that part of the world, but I would just, even if you have to hang around in Ha Giang for longer until you get a weather window, I would do it. I promise you, it's so worth it to have the best weather. What was my other tip going to be? Oh, just the road conditions, but I already went into that. So, total cost then, I'm going to have to read this off my phone because I don't remember them off the top of my head. Okay, so total cost of the bikes. So we didn't pay any additional like parts insurance on them, and they did us really well. So just to remind you, what we got was the semi-automatic. Red, what was the brand of bike that we got? We got the Honda Wings, Honda Blades. We got 2 semi-automatic Honda Blades, and they were really comfortable bikes. They were really fun. And the reason we got semi-automatics was just for the downhills mostly. So we did the Mahon Song in Thailand on automatic scooters, and it kind of does like a engine, like, what do you, not like an engine stall, like a, I guess it goes into like a neutral on the downhill, so it feels like you don't really have much control. And we just figured on this one it would be safer, especially with 3 of us doing it, to have semi-automatics. And it was definitely much better having the engine brake, so I would definitely recommend that. And they cost us £15.50 for the 3 of us. I'm presuming that is per day. And fuel was roughly £1 a day, so we'll call that £4 for the 4 days. The police fines cost us roughly £43 each, so that is pretty pricey. And then food, let's say roughly £10 each, and accommodation, if we say roughly £3.50 each, because I think a couple places were maybe £4 equivalent or something. So grand total for the 4-day trip came to roughly £113 each, which is £113 each, which is £28.25 a day, which I don't think is actually probably that dissimilar to a price you'd pay for a tour, but I'm not really sure what food is included. I think maybe you get your evening meal included. I think it very much depends on what tour you do. So yeah, I don't know. If you're looking to save money by doing it independently, I don't think you're going to save all that much money. But if you just want to do it independently with your own group and experience it for yourselves and take the time, then I would 100% recommend it. And yeah, as of the end of December 2023, it was still 100% possible to do if you're willing to pay the fines. And just, yeah, go careful, find a rental that will allow you to rent them without international driving licenses. Do it. It was the best thing that we did in Vietnam, possibly the best thing that I've done in Southeast Asia, maybe even like ever. One of my best experiences ever, just because the views were like nothing I'd ever seen before. I don't want to oversell it to you because I feel like you just have to go and see it for yourself. Yeah, most amazing thing. And I hope if you do it, you have an amazing time. And I hope that this has worked and that you can hear me. And yeah, I'll try and do some more videos with some other tips in Southeast Asia as of 2024, just with some latest information, because I think it's super helpful when I was trying to find information on these things and trying to read blogs and watch videos. A lot of them are a bit outdated, so I'll do one also for the Mahon Song, and I will try and do a couple of other things too. We did like the Hai Van Pass and stuff, so yeah, keep your eyes peeled for a couple more of these videos if you found it useful. I hope you have. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, same username, so yeah, I always feel so awkward doing that, but anyway, okay, that's enough, bye.